Hey guys, my name's Shane. I'm the Vice President of the San Joaquin Literary Association. This is our first night, first of 3 readings for the Rogue event tomorrow at 7:30 in the same place and Saturday at 3:45. Yes. Okay, so our first reader tonight is Jackie Heffron. She is a second-year student in the CSU Fresno MFA for Creative Nonfiction. She divides her time unevenly between teaching, writing, and spending time with her daughter. While Jackie is an avid supporter of the Shamrock Shake, she does not support daylight savings time. Yay. Her work is forthcoming from Fiction Brigade and Jaded Ibis Press, both due out this summer. Please welcome Jackie Heffron.
Thank you to everybody for coming out tonight. This piece that I'm going to read was 3,500 words this morning, and now it's like 1,600. So if there's any gaps, that's because that happened. This essay is entitled Permanence. I stand with my butt pressed against the white tile of the bathroom countertop, trying to keep my right shoulder back while craning my neck to look into the mirror. Contorted into this position, I see the wound clearly. Skin flushed bright red like a sunburn, thin rivulets of blood tinged with black escaping from a million tiny puncture wounds on my right shoulder blade. It's beautiful. Tattoos work because skin, especially the deepest layer, has memory. While our outer skin, the epidermis, is constantly sloughing away with every intimate touch or casual encounter, the deeper dermis is relatively stable. A tattoo gun transfers ink into the dermis at a rate up to 3,000 punctures per minute. The final design is visible through the nearly translucent outer skin. Over time, the ink gradually travels deeper and deeper into the dermis, causing the design to fade. From the outside, an old tattoo seems to prove that everything lacks permanence. But underneath the skin, the tattoo has simply become more a part of you. I moved through the doors of the ICU room, momentarily disoriented by a maze of curtains and the sounds of hospital machinery and rustling plastic. I followed the beeps and clicks that seemed to call me toward a bed in the furthest corner of the room, the worn blue curtain pulled back to reveal Luke's prone form tented beneath clear plastic. Behind the bed, a large machine huffed and wheezed rhythmically, and Luke's chest moved in time, heaving up and down in a 3-step pattern of forced respiration. Inhale, pause, exhale. His skin, inhumanly pale, sagged uselessly over inert muscles. I watched for a few minutes, afraid to move too close lest I disturb the delicate machinery, afraid to breathe lest I steal his vital air. The doctors weren't sure what Luke had, but the coma he plunged into and his body's refusal to breathe on its own were undeniable realities. No one was sure how much damage had been done to his brain or his body. 2 weeks later, as swiftly and strangely as Luke fell ill, he woke up. He had lost 40 pounds, and damage to his pancreas left him with insulin-dependent diabetes. His brain was fine, the doctor said. Luke was not the same. I don't remember which of us got a tattoo first. Luke got a human skull with twisting horns, reminiscent of dozens of heavy metal album covers. Mine was the obviously lesser of the two. His skull stretched about 7 inches across his back, while my sad little starburst was only 2 inches by 2 inches wide. I decided to get the tattoo on my left ankle, just above the knobby bones that connect the leg to the foot. The skin there was already flawed. A purple stripe about 1 inch wide marked the spot where part of the skin was grated away when I fell off the hood of a car. A particularly low moment, the lingering scar would not allow me to forget. Everything seemed fine that first night. I followed the aftercare instructions. When I woke up the next morning, the skin surrounding that tattoo was hot and red, and my ankle was stiff. I assumed the pain was normal and tried to ignore it. The second day I woke up, my raw skin was plastered to my sheets, and my ankle was thicker than my calf. I peeled the sheets back carefully, the pale cotton stained black. The swelling led me to the doctor, but by the time the swelling subsided a few days later, the design lacked any symmetry. The outline warped and stretched, and the ink half gone. The experience led to a 10-year hiatus from the whole tattoo business. But Luke's first tattoo was like a heroin addict's first hit. His craving for needle grew and grew. His taste was for the macabre, and when Luke's first full sleeve was completed, depicting flesh and muscle strategically torn away to reveal biomechanical joints and complex structures intended more for a spacecraft than a human body, he posed for photographs with my then 9-month-old daughter, stripped down to her diaper so her pale, perfect skin made a stark contrast against his Technicolor arm. "I need to introduce you to my tattoo guy," he said between takes. "I never got you anything when the little one was born, so let this be my gift." I smiled, but reminded him of my last tattoo and all the problems I had. He wouldn't drop the issue until I gave him a very firm maybe. On a cold February morning, I get a call from the hospital. The doctor is threatening amputation. Luke had a major infection in his foot. An explorative procedure would determine if gangrene had set in or if the infection had reached the bone before the doctors made the final decision, but they wanted him to prepare for the worst. I left Elise, now nearly 2, in daycare and ditched class to go to the hospital. There was something humbling about seeing a man Luke's size dangle over the edges of a too small hospital bed, something I'd hoped to never see again. "What's up, girlie?" he smiled, as if we were casually meeting at a restaurant or a bar, not across a hospital nightstand littered with empty juice boxes and Jell-O cups. His giant feet stuck out past the end of the crinkly sheet. Small reddish-brown stains freckled the otherwise bright white of the sterile gauze bandages. I asked him how it happened. "I was sitting by the fire one night and a few sparks flew out. I didn't want to let him burn the rug, so I just tapped him out with my foot." The problem, of course, was that Luke had now had diabetes for more than 10 years. He'd developed neuropathy in his feet. The skin, betrayed by nerve endings and blood vessels that are supposed to nourish it, started to break down. And because of neuropathy, diabetics who don't keep a close eye out for things often have no idea there's a wound at all because they can't feel it. Luke's skin was weak, and he misjudged how badly he was burned, failing to notice when the holes created by those tiny embers started to grow. He woke up one day with a fever and noticed his lower right leg was inflamed, called his mother and asked her to drive him to the emergency room. I left Luke that night sharing his optimism that the doctors would be able to save his foot, but he was unable to infect me with his resolve if they weren't. The doctors did save it, after they removed about 1/3 of the tissue and the saphenous artery from his leg where the infection had spread. Because they had to remove so much and because Luke's skin was slow to regenerate, they devised a wound vacuum for him to wear while the skin graft healed and inserted a PICC line to deliver antibiotics directly in through his heart. He finally introduced me to Mike, his tattoo artist. They'd spent a lot of time together since Luke lost his job because he couldn't work with half a foot. Luke practically had to get naked to show me all the new tattoos he'd added over the last few months. I wondered how safe all these tattoos were for someone in his condition, but didn't ask. Standing between these two brawny and heavily inked men, my skin felt blank and uninteresting. Cornered, I agreed to stop by the shop and let Mike sketch out a design. I finally couldn't put the visit off any longer. The design we'd chosen was a branch of cherry blossoms and the kanji characters for my daughter's middle name, Aiko, which literally means love child in Japanese, but it translates in English as a child that is loved. As the hour passed, I started to consider potential future tattoos. There are plenty of scars that need covering, the purpled valleys that stretch across my abdomen nearly 3 years after my pregnancy, a small puckered crescent on my right wrist from a run-in with a pane of glass, the shape of a tooth from a schoolyard fight. For this tattoo, however, I chose fresh, unblemished skin. Suddenly started to cry, and not because the needles hurt. Agreeing to get this tattoo meant I had finally accepted that I was going to lose Luke sooner rather than later, and I wanted some small reminder of him that couldn't be taken away from me. It may be my daughter's name, but it's not about her. Of course, I couldn't say any of this, so I tried to laugh it off, telling them that I guess I wasn't as tough as I thought. Luke was in the hospital again. Hidden beneath the layers of skin, invisible from the outside, the infection never healed. He'd been sick so long, the illness is a kind of permanence, and amputation is inevitable. That night, as I bathed Elise, I noticed a tiny brown spot on her back that wouldn't come off even though I scrubbed until the surrounding skin started to turn pink. A freckle. Cute, some would say. But in that spot, I see the first signs of decay, the first proof that her skin will not always protect her the way it is supposed to. A flaw in the design. Thank you.